So we're here at NAB, and for our first episode, we really want to talk about one of the buzzwords that's been going around the show, which is AI. It's obviously big, and obviously there's a lot of questions about it.
Yeah, I mean, there is a lot of questions, and I think probably the first thing to talk about is what are the different kinds of AI, because it's a buzzword, but it's also, there's very different kinds, and it has a different impact on you as a creator. So can you describe like some of the different types?
Yeah, so one of the first types that has been around for a little while and that we're very big on is on-device machine learning-based AI that's targeted for very specific purposes. For example, our voice isolation filter in LumaFusion is an AI-based filter. It was trained on specific media, that Apple owned, frankly, because this is an Apple technology, and it doesn't take your data in any way. It just does a particular job to reduce the noise that's in the background on audio. And there are a lot of different types of specific AI tools like that.
So for me, privacy is one of the main concerns, but you're saying that that type of AI is not trained on internet media that it just stole.
Right. It's not scraped across the internet, and nor does it put your media up into the internet, to possibly be scraped as well.
Yeah, so you get the efficiency in the workflow without the risk.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
So the next type, is a large learning model that might be on your device and might not take your media, but it's been trained on across the internet. It might have been scraped on who knows what media. And so that creates some really ethical questions I think you've been looking into.
Yeah, I have. I mean, it is difficult because that gives you, more capabilities, maybe faster and more dynamic, but it irritates me because that knowledge of how to create a beautiful scene literally comes off the backs of all the creators that have come before and dedicated their lives to this industry, me being one of them. So that kind of irritates me, to be honest.
Yeah, and I think there's the other question to that is the fact that it will, moving forward, if everybody's using AI to generate these things, then how do we get new content? How do we get people to have jobs creating that content? Are we losing all those jobs? And what is that going to mean both for our industry? But one of the biggest questions is across all industries, these LLMs are general purpose. They can give us results on just about anything.
Yeah.
And so in every industry, it's going to be a sea change, including mine. For engineers, I no longer need junior engineers nearly as much as I would before because I can ask ChatGPT to write very good code. But that worries me because one of those junior engineers who doesn't have a job now might be the most brilliant person out there and might have come up with the next big idea, and that won't happen. And so I'm concerned about that. And we didn't talk about the third level of LLMs, which is really where everything you put in goes up to the internet, you get a great result back, but you really don't know what happens to the data you set up, whether it's just a text prompt, whether it's your video, whether it's your audio. You better read the license agreement very carefully because they can use that for further training. And you might hear something very similar to something you put in there later on.
Yeah, your ideas are for sale.
Exactly.
And you're not the one monetizing them.
Right.
And there's, look at the privacy policies of the apps that you use and make sure you understand what they mean and what data they're accessing. Even video editors accessing your health data. We've read that over this week. So
I couldn't understand that even a bit. It's they can access your health data and use it in ways to sell you new things and in ways that we don't even know what they could do with it.
Right.
But it certainly will. You lose your privacy in that. One of the other things you said to me yesterday that was, I think, from one of the keynotes here was a funny statement that because we know that AI can do an immense amount for us. It can take away a lot of drudgery, and that's great. But there was a funny comment that they made, and why don't you talk about that?
Yeah, I think you're speaking about, they said something along the lines with, you don't have to tinker with the mechanics anymore. You don't have to tinker with editing. You don't have to tinker with making graphics. You don't have to tinker anymore. Yeah. And they said, we'll go from 10% creativity and 90% process to 90% creativity and 10% process, because they think if you don't have to tinker, you'll somehow have all this time to be creative.
Right.
Missing the whole point that the process and the tinkering is the creative process. It is what we do as creators. We love to get in there and put two scenes together and figure out, oh my gosh, this will work really well with that. And that is the joy part of it for me.
Right. Even in the engineering side, it made me think of that. When I get a prompt and get some code back from ChatGPT, it's really convenient, but it's not nearly as satisfying as when I go through this process to try to figure out how can I make this work, have to play with the math, and then suddenly it works. And there's a joy to that when that happens. And that's certainly lost with ChatGPT. It's when you need it, it's very convenient. So I think we as an industry really need to think about how far do we let this go.
Yeah.
You know, certainly in so many areas it's going to be a game changer for, you know, making our jobs easier. Things we're doing like voice isolation, like speech to text, like coming up with background removal. I think all those are perfect, and I think they're great uses of, you know, AI. But even there, we have to be careful because those are taking jobs too. People had to do that manually before. So I think we just have to question along the way, you know, what are we doing? What is important to us, and where is that where are we losing creativity, you know, in the industry?
Think about what messages you're hearing, the democratization of creativity. That would be true if we were making more people be able to go through the process of creativity, but AI isn't a person. It's actually less people being creative. It's not democratization. It's devaluation of creativity, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I mean, I could be wrong, but we'd really like to hear, you know, people's opinion. That's why we're here. We want to hear what you guys think. So.
Exactly. Yeah, and I think that's important because think about it a little bit. I think that's the thing that I think people need to do is, and we've talked to a lot of people here who have this initial reaction that, oh, AI is great. It's, you know, it's going to solve all my problems. And when we talk just for a few minutes about these kind of questions, then they start thinking about it. And that's all we really want for people to do is to start thinking, what really does this mean to me? Learn a little bit more about some of the dangers that AI presents, both from a privacy standpoint, from a career standpoint, from a whole industry standpoint, and think, where do we want to go with it and how far do we want to go?
Yeah, I mean, I like to compare it to, because it's a general technology, I like to compare it to the introduction of the combustion engine, because it's the same. It's going to go across all industries and all disciplines. It's going to have an impact on. And it's not that AI is going to destroy our industry, but our industry is going to change. Just like the combustion engine did not put, you know, the equine industry out of business. Like, there's still people that train horses and feed horses and all sorts of things with horses, but the horses are no longer the transportation industry. Right. And that's what's going to happen to our industry. These people at NAB, where we are today, they are tinkerers. They're people that love to create. And we're about to enter a phase where these aren't going to be the same people. Just like the people in the equine industry didn't just move into the transportation industry. We don't know anything about engines. We know about horses. We don't know anything about coding high-level AI stuff, you know? Yeah. So I think this is the really risk. And so I want people to think, if we ask AI to do all of our jobs, will AI do all of our jobs? Yeah. And what will we do? Yeah. Is someone going to pay us to sit home and be creative, or sit home and spend time with our family, which I love to do, but nobody's going to pay me for that. Right. And it basically will mean less people, you know, can do more work, of course, which in some ways is good, but it means a lot less, you know, and you have to ask yourself, am I one of the people who will have a job after? We all think we are that person. We think we're going to be that person. Oh, I'm the person who's, you know, invaluable and they can't replace me. But I'm seeing here at the show, there's a lot of things that can be replaced, unfortunately. And is that a good thing? And that's what we just have to keep asking ourselves. What is the level, and is that a good thing? And I get back to what you were talking about, the whole process versus creativity thing. I think they have missed the point on that part of the creativity is the process. And, you know, and not all of it. It's great to reduce some of that process. Some things are true drudgery when you're, you know, doing editing. But those things like finding the right cuts and, you know, putting things together, that tinkering is so much part of the fun of it. You know, when I'm doing a hobby, you know, I build RC airplanes, and 90% of it is this horrible long process of trying to build a plane that, you know, might actually fly. But that's the fun of it when it does. You know, you've done the work to create it, and you get the satisfaction saying, I did it. I didn't just write a prompt that says, give me this beautiful scene, and it was done for me. Right. I love tabletop puzzles, and that's my example I'm always using, is that, like, okay, I buy a tabletop puzzle and I say, make puzzle, and it's made for me. I would be like, what? I don't want that. Exactly. And now if we have things like Sora that can generate unbelievable videos,
what happened to the creativity of the camera people who found just the right scene, just the right lighting, just the right time of day, who sat there for hours to get just the right shot? Yeah, that's been replaced. You don't need that anymore.
Yesterday in the opening with Amica, the robot, talk about the voiceovers and how you felt about those.
Oh, that that was just terrible, because these voiceovers that they're creating with AI, excuse me, are really incredible. I mean, because we were at a show talking about AI, I could tell they were created by AI. But if I had heard them in the wild, I would not have known. They have unbelievable accents, inflections. They sound like just anybody else who I could talk to. With a few seconds of my own audio, they could replace me in a second on, not that I do radio, but if I were, I'd be gone, because, and they were even saying it. It's so much easier to quickly change the text that's going to be said, when you need to do that at 10 o'clock at night. So you don't need a person, because, hey, you can change that text. Well, there we go. Just lost a bunch of
like, do we care about the voiceover artists in our industry? And I'm going to say yes. I know some of them, and I love them. I don't want them to be out of business, know?
And frankly, there's still always something when a human being does it, whether it's a mistake that they made. There's so many movies that they've where the director has talked about the fact that some little mistake became the thing that made the movie better.
Right. Well, I mean, that brings up a good point, and maybe that's people will want to comment on that. Do we believe that our humanness will be recognizable to audiences, and that will elevate our content above AIs? And secondly, will there be enough of that elevated content to actually have a viable industry for people to work in? Like, is that just the top 10%? Because if 90% of these, how many booths are here?
1,300 booths.
1,300 booths. Yeah. If 90% of them are gone, we'll be having it at at a little hotel down the strip. So
it's potentially life-changing. This has, and the other thing that I think we don't talk about is how fast this has moved. Other big technological changes in our industry have generally come with one company coming out with a brilliant idea, and then people slowly coming on board with it. And so it's been a gradual change to a very targeted area of the industry that, whether it's 8K, whether it's virtual reality, whether it's, those kind of things. This is transforming everything all at once. And I think that's something people have to remember about it. It's not the same as other technological innovations that have happened where we've had to adapt. And even in those, they might lose some jobs, it might change some things. But this is so across the board that I can't myself see exactly what the end result's going to be.
No one can, because as the models get more complex and combine into federations of models, they can learn from each other. And that gives us emergent properties that we didn't expect. Like right now, I can type a single word, coaching. And with Designer Genie, I can get an entire book written for me, illustrated for me, and published. Amazon recently reported that they were slowing down the amount of books you can publish a day to just 3. Just only publish 3 a day, because because you can make one like that. And that brings up a point about copyright. So products like that, I mean, I don't know those folks. They're probably great folks, but they warn you, make sure you change the text in there before you publish, because it's copyrighted stuff we're taking, right? But wait a minute, they're monetizing on copyrighted stuff. So, like, our copyright laws have not caught up with where we are right now. And this is going to happen. I trust that copyright laws will catch up. But it's a little bit too little too late. Everything has already been taken.
And it's moving so fast.
So the only thing, in my opinion, we can do is have standards that, will slap people on the wrist for these kind of egregious things we're doing. It's just, I care about the industry because I've been here for maybe 40 years now.
So we as a company are really, I think, going to put a stake in the sand of what we think AI should be and how we're going to use it. And that's going to be very carefully directed AI that's targeted for particular purposes, that's trained ethically, and that does not take your data and that has no effects on your privacy. And only in areas where we think it can truly take away the drudgery without taking away the fun tinkering that that is editing.
Right.
You know,
Like,
so
maybe you want to find some media. That would be a great use of, like, I know I have this clip and it's going to take me an hour to find it.
yeah.
Like, okay, fine,
Yeah.
type in some words. But then you're going to look at the clip and you're going to examine it for its creative properties.
Where to cut it, how to color it. Those things should be your decision, and we'll provide tools that can make that faster and easier, but not take away that part of the creativity. So I think that's important, and privacy is always going to be important to us. We have never taken customer data. We don't know who our customers are unless they contact us and talk to us, and we love that when they do, but we'll never take that information, and that's another stake in the sand for us, that privacy is utmost importance.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I welcome all of you to send in your questions.
Yep. Comments.
Put it in the comments.
Yeah.
And we will take some of those questions. And Chris and I, right now we're together at NAB, but he's in Salt Lake, I'm in Seattle.
Yep.
So we will be reading off those questions and grappling with the answers. So I think it's great to talk about features of LumaFusion, but I also think it's great to talk about the industry and just how you feel about your job and how things are going for you.
We look forward to hearing from you.
Yeah.